So if you're a dinosaur like me and you're still on Facebook, and if you're even bigger nerd and you're on Facebook groups, you've probably noticed these creepy posts that are like, "Hey guys, it's me, Mike Star Jam Buddy AI by group." These posts that keep popping up in your feed, they're kind of like three robot raccoons in a trench coat trying to pass as human and definitely allowed to buy these 88 hot dogs. Well, AI's got questions, weird questions, and I've got weird, hopefully nearly straightforward answers. So let's dive into a couple of these that I thought were somewhat amusing, but actually underneath it, I don't know, kind of decent things to know about. So here we go. What is the purpose of sound checks before live music performances in Colorado venues? So I think this applies to not just Colorado venues, except the purpose of a sound check in Red Rocks is to freaking soak it in, to have like an amazing moment of the most amazing acoustics in the world, just all to yourself before your amazing performance because you've made it. You are playing at Red Rocks, and nothing can ever take that away from you. But not just Colorado venues. What's the purpose of a sound check is to, if you don't already know this, it's to get the levels right. It's to kind of make sure that everyone's hearing what they need to hear and we're all balanced. And if we were to start playing right now, we'd all kind of feel like we have what we need to move forward without hold it, just a second, like not have problems right from the jump. It's a luxury that you often don't have, and it also is not the end all be all, because once you have a room full of people or a Red Rocks full of people or whatever, things change. Like you do need some adjustments here and there, and you have to speak up for yourself. But sound check obviously is to try to get as much of that out of the way as possible and to hit the ground running when the show starts. Um, how do open mic events contribute to the development of local music scenes? Great question, Mike Star, Jam Buddy. Um, well, as I've covered before, this is kind of a broad question, but it's sort of twofold. So, open mics, I think, are a really necessary part of the kind of organism of a music scene. First and foremost, in the sort of development cycle of players who are just getting started, who don't have their act together well enough to like make it through the gatekeeper process to like get paying gigs. This is a great place to get all kinds of things kind of ironed out, like how to play in front of an audience, work up your material, kind of learn what works, what doesn't, find your voice, kind of critically listen to yourself while at the same time being supported, like being around a community of people who are not gonna be overly judgmental and kind of understand what you're going through and are either going through that same thing themselves or have been through that same thing themselves. So a sympathetic, supportive audience helps you kind of work out who you are as a musician and kind of gather your head of steam to make the next leap into paying gigs. It is also an important part of creating galvanizing venues. So I think that having open mics that bring players and their friends to a place regularly where they become familiar with that place, and then kind of comes to mind, that's a place I like to go. I like something that's on the menu, and also they've got music on Friday, and maybe we can go hang out there. Or my buddy who's at the open stage, he's finally got a gig over here. So like when I was growing up in Denver, an example of many like that was Paris on the Platte. There was a great open stage there. It was also a place that was where I got my first like paying solo gig, just sort of by making myself known to the venue staff and kind of proving that I could handle it. And it's a place that's near and dear to my heart. It's gone now, unfortunately, but a place that I always think of very fondly as instrumental to not only my own development but also a real cornerstone of the acoustic scene in Denver at that time. And I think that it goes hand in hand. Having the open stage was a really important part of, sort of galvanizing that whole movement to that place. Does anybody else hear original songs in their dreams and record it as soon as they wake up so they don't forget how it goes? That is the creepiest AI question, and that one like made my heart skip a beat. That a robot asked that question, because yes, yeah, this happened to me just a couple days ago, and so I'll emphasize that when you have a song in your dream, do not think that you're going to remember that 5 minutes from now. Get up immediately and go hash it out and record it on your phone. Do whatever it takes to memorialize it. Some of them will be not keepers when you have had some breakfast. You'll listen back to it and think, that wasn't as special as it felt in my dream. But others will be worthwhile. Like the parts of your brain that make music, they're still working when you're dreaming. They're still trying to break through it. And sometimes they got some good stuff to say. Sometimes it's gobbledygook and kind of nonsense that only made sense in the dream. And other times, so like my own song, I Am the Moon, is one that began as a dream song, and that I then, worked up, polished, made more of. It's not like it came fully formed, but the crystallizing moment and I'm using a lot of similar terms here, right? Anyway, bottom line, that stuff can be really valid, can be really exciting, can be outside the box for you, can be kind of creative in a way. So like with that song, it was in 5, and it was this kind of I am the moon, and it was like I just had that in my head, this little, like the kernel of the melody, and then this moment, this I am the moon, and the feeling that it was in 5, this little da 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 da, like all of that, those little pieces, those components came to me in a dream. I recorded them real quick, and then I worked them up, and they still seemed cool after breakfast, so I made something of it, and I'm very proud of that song. It's one of my personal favorites. Okay, let's see. Know this one? What is the term for the process of revising and refining a song's melody and lyrics? Speaking of, the term, I use the term polish, but it's really just part of songwriting. So refinement is revision and refinement. Polishing ideas is going to be kind of par for the course. Like that's going to be the norm. That's going to be what you do most of the time. Is you have an idea and you're going to have to work it up. Sometimes stuff comes to you quick and is ready to go. Sometimes stuff is right there. But as I cover in some of my sort of in-depth songwriting videos, the reality is, and it shouldn't shake you from it, it shouldn't discourage you, is that songwriting is work, and songwriting is taking these ideas and thinking about them and thinking about them again, and really kind of mulling over whether or not you've nailed it, whether it's ready to set down, and you shouldn't be afraid of the work. Like it's okay to like try stuff out. It's okay to deviate from what you originally thought you were going to do. Like my song "How Did I Ever Lose You," I have a whole video that covers from tip to tail the writing process of that song, and I was headed in one direction, and then I was like out for a jog and just kind of had an epiphany of I want to take this in a different direction, and that ended up being the fruitful path that that made me kind of break through into the final version of the song, and I think it's one of my best songs. Lucky for me, because I decided to make a video about writing it. Okay, what was your worst gig experience ever? I should have like a ready-made anecdote for this one, and I believe it or not, I didn't come into this video idea prepared with like answers. I'm gonna do these off the top of my head and hope that it's okay. I can think of one. So one comes to mind. Obviously, I've had I've played hundreds of gigs, if not thousands of gigs, and most of them go very smoothly or have just a couple little hiccups, nothing that would stick with you as like, oh, that was the worst ever. There have been a couple times where things really went crossed some kind of line, and so I'm going to think of the one that comes to mind is probably not the most crazy, but I think of one, but I think it's probably the most illustrative. Like, don't let this get to you. Don't take it personally when this kind of thing happens, because this kind of thing does happen. So, we played a gig at a dive bar in Hillsborough that is not there anymore, and it just became kind of an unmitigated disaster in terms of the tension between us and the venue and the promoter who had booked us into the venue. Like, it was all unfolding in real time. Like, we were there playing, and the venue pulled the plug. They didn't like literally pull the plug, but they pulled the plug on our performance, and then let me have an earful about how we weren't delivering what they had been promised would happen. It was all just kind of these conflicting expectations. Like, the promoter had kind of sold us to the venue as like some sort of high draw act that if we just show up and play, we will fill this dive bar with thirsty patrons. And we didn't deliver that because that's not who we are. Also, this dive bar has no natural draw and it is the worst. I don't drink, but even I know it's the worst dive bar I've ever been in terms of like just being disorganized. They didn't even have. Not only did not have anything on tap, all the drinks were out of a cooler full of ice. So like, they're selling beer, but it's just out of a cooler full of ice. They didn't even have a freaking refrigerator, and they're kind of have the gall to like chew me out that I didn't bring 50 people there, and that some of the people that we brought, some of the people who did come to see us, left early because it was sketchy. The whole place was. I don't blame them. And then the having to like come back around with the promoter's kind of a joke, the venue's kind of a joke. Probably they view that we're kind of a joke. Certainly, we're not what they had in mind, and that was just such an uncomfortable situation where they're like telling us to stop playing right in the middle because they'd rather just play the jukebox and get the hell out of here. And like, they're yelling at me while I'm tearing down, and I'm having to go ahead and also stand up for myself when all I want to do is get the heck out of there. That was a terrible one. And the lesson learned, I guess, is just, I'm not really sure. But kind of, like, I guess for me, one of the things that I learned is, first, I'm not going to take it personally that this dive bar was disappointed in the transaction that they thought they were getting with me. What I did learn is that promoter is the way that he ended up handling the entire thing, from how he was promoting it to also some things that happened after. That's somebody I don't want to do business with, and so that's fine. I'm not going to do business with him, and I don't need to make a big stink about it, but like, I'm just done with that guy. All right, any guesses? Why do musicians use in-ear monitors during live performances? I have one guess, which is that they'd like to hear themselves. I personally don't like in-ear monitors. I've only had a couple experiences where there was like a headphone mix for me at a festival, and it was more than I wanted to deal with. Like, having the little, you can control your own monitor mix. You can get a little more of this, a little more of that. Because one of the things that I don't like as a drummer is I don't really want to hear the drums in my monitors, whether they're on the floor or in my ears. I just want to hear kind of the instrument that I'm sitting at is loud enough. I want to hear everybody else well enough that I can know where we are, know what they're playing, hear what they're doing, react to it, and kind of have a sense of my relative balance to them. So I'm old school, and what I vastly prefer is a really great stage mix. But I understand why in-ear monitors are popular, even if I'm not used to them, which is that plenty of times you just can't get the stage mix to work. There's issues with the stage volume, with relative positioning of amps, and this room is weird, and there's this amount of noise and this amount of loss. So homogenizing it and having a lot of control over it is why in-ear monitors are so popular, even though I personally haven't gotten used to them yet. They're probably inevitably, survey says they're an amazing advancement in monitor technology, and I should get with the program, run with the pack. Okay, any guesses? Any guesses? What is the term for the process of creating a final mix of a song, balancing levels and tones? That is a mix. It's a mix. The mixing process is where we do that. And then following the mixing process is the mastering process. So the mixing process is where you kind of blend and balance everything that you've recorded in layers, and not just mixing, not just the levels and tones, but also the stereo positioning, the panning of those elements. So what things are coming from the left, what things are coming from the right, what things are coming from both the left and the right, what's dead center, which things have, by tones, let's talk about EQ. So it's like, there are these things like notably guitar and voice, especially like a tenor voice. These want to occupy the same frequencies, and they're battling each other for space. Sometimes you create that space through orchestration, like as I cover in like my ducking, self-ducking video for guitar players, to kind of give your voice some space by pulling your own guitar back when you're singing, because we'd rather hear you sing than hear you strum. So creating these sort of picket fences of frequencies that are going to belong to the guitar, belong to the vocal, belong to the bass. We don't. Everyone else can kind of lose their low end frequencies. Let's have the bass cover that, the bass and the kick drum, and that let's have them really occupy that space. So that's the mix, and then mastering is taking that stereo mix and then making it sort of loud enough and tight enough to sound like other songs on the radio. So the process of mastering changes over the year. That's why you'll see songs that are like 2015 remastered, and it's a song you've heard before, but it just sounds just a little bit more consistent with other songs you hear these days. So like old songs need to be remastered to kind of be a little louder, a little tighter, and to play from a new song to some old Police song without it suddenly dipping in volume. That's what mastering's about. It's more than the robot wants. It's more than anybody wants. Okay, just a few more. Let's do 3 more. Which Colorado venues allow musicians to bring their own gear? Again. I'm going to try to answer this in a way that's not just applicable to Colorado venues, but also to other places, including Portland, where I live. So that's a funny question. I'm not sure what the most applicable answer is, but here's the thing. Let's talk about when you should and shouldn't bring your own gear. So first off, this is something that is definitely part of like band leader communication. There's all kinds of scenarios here where I can think about the question of what gear should we bring. So if you are playing a gig somewhere, you need to understand what gear is already there for you. Does this place have house sound? Does this festival have house sound? Sometimes you would expect the answer to be yes, but sometimes you might be surprised to learn the answer is no, and you need to bring it yourself. So as a band, I cover this when I was looking at sort of these all-in-one PAs. Every band needs to have at least a simple PA that's portable, that you can take on those occasions where you need to bring something to be vocally projected, to be heard. So every band needs to have its essential gear in order. Even if you don't have a complex PA, you need to have something available, because it is frequently the case that there's no gear provided and you need to bring your own. Sometimes there's no lighting provided, although I think you can safely say that in almost every venue situation, the room is lit, even if it's not fancy. So I personally have not crossed over into thinking that similarly every band ought to have a lighting rig, but I know some people who do feel that way, that they need to have a lighting rig when there's not one in evidence on the stage, which is actually kind of frequent. What about other kinds of gear? Drum sets. So in any kind of situation where you are a drummer and you are going to be playing in a venue, you need to know the answer to, is there a house kit, which is probably no, but sometimes yes. And more importantly, if you're on a bill with other bands, there needs to be a conversation among band leaders with sort of the input from their drummers about how are we going to handle backlining. Do we want to backline and make quicker transitions? I generally say, yeah, we should try to figure that out, which that's a good thing to have in place. And that would extend to, can we share a bass amp? Can we share a drum set? Can we share a guitar amp? Can we not have 20 minutes plus between bands of tearing stuff down, pulling it off stage, and putting more stuff up? That's a big distraction and a big letdown in the energy of any kind of show. So when possible, you got to share what you can. This creates some etiquette that surrounds sharing a drum set, for instance, and what that means, and which parts are shared and which parts are you bring your own sticks, you bring your own cymbals, you bring your own snare. Typically, some people actually want to go a little further. You bring your own pedal, you bring your own stool. Whatever breakables means to the drummer who's providing the main kit. Some people also, I have some videos about like the etiquette of, thou shalt not retune my drums, for instance. But those are things to think about. When you're at an open stage, you should bring the minimum gear that it takes for you to play, but you should not bring so much gear that it takes away from your time, because you don't have extra time to set up at an open stage. So you need to figure out what that means, how you can be quick to ascend the stage, play your stuff, and quick to strike your gear all within your allotted time. So if you have 15 minutes, it is from setup to off the stage. So you need to plan accordingly. What tips would you give a musician looking for a band? That is a good question. So I know this is a long video, but hopefully we can get a little bit into this question without, and maybe I'll do a separate video about this. So the thing that comes to mind for me is, in seeing musician wanted ads, a thing that often sticks out to me is this reluctance to share a sample right here and now of what you sound like. Whether it's a band seeks drummer. So I've been on sort of both sides of the fence, and a lot of times for me it's a drummer, but I also am looking for other people. So when I need, when I'm looking for a drummer, for instance, I will always sort of not only describe the band and talk about, I don't bother talking about our influences, but a lot of people do, just to kind of orient people to it. We kind of sound like this. We kind of sound, if you like these bands, hey, so do we, and we kind of, that's kind of our philosophy. But a lot of musician wanted ads will just talk about it and then ask the responding musicians to sort of make the first move in this dance of providing a sample. A lot of time gets wasted doing that, because when I'm a drummer responding to those ads, I would like to self-select based on what I can hear of you. I'd like to know if, I like the sound of you. Like I do respond to bands that are needing short-term drummers, for instance, as one of the as faithful viewers are aware. I do some drum subbing. When I'm trying to weed those out, it's a slight roll of the eyes when they're talking to me about we have a gig coming up and we're this, and they get a little bit in the weeds about their description of themselves in a way that doesn't necessarily make sense. And then they say, if you're interested, send samples. Like, okay, I guess I'm interested in general, but I'm kind of taking a leap of faith. I send my samples, and then they say, yeah, we're actually looking for someone who, we are mostly this kind of band, and we exclusively looking for a cajon player. That would have been nice to mention, and that would have also been something I might have self-selected. We're a hard, the samples you have are kind of a little bit more of a classic rock, blues rock kind of thing, and we're looking for someone who can just do like blast beats. Again, I would self-select if I could listen to your music and know what I was getting in for. On the flip side, a lot of people will say, drummer looking for band, and they won't provide any samples of their playing. So it's like I have to reach out to you and say, again, I have to reach out to you and describe what I'm doing, and then ask for a sample of your play. I will always include a sample of what we sound like, so that they have it. But everybody is reluctant to take the first step in a dance that they are trying to start. That's not how dancing works. So make that first move. Put yourself out there. So musician looking for a band, what tips would I give? Okay. Describe your experience. Describe the kind of styles that you can play. Talk about what you are looking for in terms of whatever matters to you. Now, I'm looking to do a band that does classic rock covers, that's doing paid gigs, that does minimal rehearsal, whatever it is, whatever your list of things is. Just be upfront about what do you desire, and then include a link to a sample of you playing. That's going to be one where you get some actual hits of people who are making an informed decision that they're interested in you, and you waste less time. So that's what I would advise, is that you put yourself out there and you make it real clear what you want, and you make it real clear who you are, and then you will find the right partner. Final question from the AI raccoons. What was your best open stage experience ever? I just like what was my worst? What was your worst gig experience ever? I've had so many really great moments happen at open stages. So many things that I've loved, but I'm going to talk about one thing the thing that sticks in my mind is something that's fairly recent. That was really cool, and I can't remember ever happening to me before, but was and true to form, it was something that happened in Colorado. So, and not at Red Rocks, but at La Dolce Vita. So in my most recent open stage tour, where I went back to Denver, where I'm from, and went to, basically an open stage every night, at least one. And the very last open stage that I played was a venue that had been kind of near and dear to my heart, where when I was living in Denver and playing in Denver, active there, had at one point in time been a place that I played very frequently. In fact, recorded a good chunk of Flip Nasty's last live album, Clapping Sold Separately, there, called La Dolce Vita in Arvada. And a place that to this day still kind of looks and feels the same. It has new ownership, but had an open stage, and I went. This was very sort of nostalgic, extra level of nostalgia to visit one of my old haunts, and for it to be, just as I remember it. So I played, and I was gonna from there start driving home to Portland. So like that night, I was gonna try to make it, somewhere middle of Wyoming, on the way to get back home. So it was kind of last stop on the Whistle Stop tour, and the last song that I played was my song "Surrender." And I don't. I'm lucky if people kind of dig what I'm doing. It is almost never the case that people like. Yeah, I'm lucky if they're grooving, if they're moving their spines, if they're kind of dancing in their seats a little bit, if they're enjoying it. But it's almost never the case that people like pick up on what I'm actually singing and sing along. And certainly not this song "Surrender" is not not one that I would think is the top five candidates for a song that people might sing along. But lo and behold, um, I get to the final chorus, and this woman up front, one of the other performers, is singing along. Um, in my memory of this she was harmonizing. She was doing a great job, is what I like. It was a really cool moment, and again, goes to that sort of supportive environment of open stages, like other performers, and this bond we all share, even if we don't know each other. Like, she's a stranger. I don't know her. I don't know her name. I don't know. She ended up leaving before I could like kind of chat with her. Like whatever, connect on Instagram or whatever. Um, I think, in fact, she left because she couldn't get a slot. I don't think she performed that night. Yeah, she didn't perform that night. She left at some point. Any event, that was a really cool moment. This is the kind of thing that for me, is like something that never happens, but is part of like the rock star dream. Is that people dig your stuff so much that they want to sing it, that they want to sing with you. Like that's something that was kind of sticks in my mind as a great open stage experience that I recently had. Anyway, I gotta wrap that story up without repeating it 5 more times. How about that? Anyway, geez, let's all go get some hot dogs or something. So till next time.